Welcome to Echo of Crime YouTube channel. On the night of November 12, 2022, the college town of Moscow, Idaho, settled into its usual weekend rhythm. Students laughed in crowded restaurants, music drifted from fraternity houses, and the cold night air carried the energy of football season. At the center of it all were four University of Idaho students: Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen, Chapin, and Xana Kernodle. Close friends who shared a home or spent countless evenings there. Nothing about that night hinted at the tragedy that would soon unfold. Kaylee and Madison spent part of the evening at a local bar before stopping at a downtown food truck, where they were captured on live stream footage, chatting casually as they waited for their order. There was no fear, no tension, just two friends enjoying a night out. Around the same time, Ethan and Xana were attending a fraternity event nearby, returning to the King Roadhouse not long after. By approximately 2 a.m., all four students were back home, settling into the familiar comfort of their three-story rental. Two other roommates were also asleep in the home, unaware that anything unusual was happening. King Road was quiet. Porch lights glowed across the hillside. Cars were parked under trees, and snow-crusted rooftops shimmered under the moonlight. It was the kind of peaceful college neighborhood where students felt safe, doors left unlocked sometimes, friends arriving at all hours, visitors coming and going. Inside the King Roadhouse, nothing seemed out of place. Phone records showed the roommates sending late-night messages and scrolling social media just like any other evening. But somewhere between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m., something changed. A disturbance occurred inside the home, something sudden, overwhelming, and silent enough that neighbors heard little more than a vague noise they couldn't identify. Two roommates slept through the event entirely. When morning arrived, sunlight revealed nothing unusual from the outside. The house looked the same, the street quiet, cars unmoved. But inside the King Road residence, the night had already fallen apart. No one yet understood the magnitude of what had happened. No one realized that within hours, the discovery made inside that home would ignite one of the most intense investigations in modern American true crime history. The morning of November 13, 2022, began like any other Sunday in Moscow, Idaho. The sun rose over the quiet hillside, lighting up rows of student houses and frost-covered lawns. At the King Road residence, two of the surviving roommates woke up gradually, moving through the house unaware of what had occurred in the early morning hours. Phone records later showed they texted friends, made plans for the day, and went about normal routines, never imagining that something was terribly wrong just floors above them. Sometime before noon, one of the roommates noticed something unusual, something confusing enough to prompt concern, but still unclear in nature. A call was placed to friends, asking them to come over, a detail that would later generate intense public discussion. When those friends arrived, the atmosphere inside the home shifted instantly. What had seemed like an ordinary morning turned into a scene of confusion, alarm, and rising panic. At 11:58 a.m., a call to 911 was placed from one of the surviving roommates' phones. The caller reported an unconscious person. Within minutes, Moscow police units were on their way. When officers arrived, they immediately recognized that this was not a medical emergency. It was a crime scene of staggering severity. The four students had been found deceased on the second and third floors of the home. The surviving roommates and the friends who had arrived earlier were quickly moved outside, while law enforcement worked to secure the location. Yellow tape went up. Emergency vehicles lined the narrow street. Word began spreading across campus, and the town faster than officials could release verified information. By early afternoon, news outlets were already reporting that something horrific had happened near the University of Idaho. Students texted one another frantically. Parents called their children, demanding answers. Rumors swirled across social media within minutes, some accurate, many wildly incorrect. The Moscow Police Department, unprepared for a case of this scale, found itself navigating not only a complex crime scene, but also an escalating wave of public fear. Detectives and forensic teams moved carefully through the house, documenting every inch of the chaotic scene. They noted that there was no sign of forced entry, no broken windows, no damaged doors, This fact alone raised dozens of questions. Did the suspect know the victims? Did someone leave the door unlocked? Was the crime targeted, or was it random? Investigators could not yet say. What they did know was that the timing of the attack, likely within a narrow window between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m., was no coincidence. Whoever had entered the home that night did so with purpose. The police initially described the attack as isolated and assured the public that there was no ongoing threat, a statement that led to confusion and criticism when no suspect was yet identified. Students flooded out of campus housing. Parents drove hours to bring their children home, and the once peaceful college town changed overnight into a place filled with caution and fear. Businesses closed early. Streets emptied before sunset. Every unfamiliar face became a source of suspicion. In the meantime, detectives began piecing together the victims' final hours, collecting surveillance footage from downtown businesses, interviewing dozens of witnesses, analyzing phone data, and mapping out timelines minute by minute. Each victim had taken a separate path home that night, yet they all converged at the King Road residence before 2 a.m. Their routines seemed ordinary, their interactions normal. Nothing appeared out of place. And yet the crime scene told a completely different story. The early days of the investigation were marked by intense pressure. State troopers, FBI agents, and forensic experts joined the effort. Hundreds of tips poured in daily, but no clear suspect emerged. No motive. Nothing that could explain how such a brutal event could occur inside a house full of people without anyone noticing enough to call for help. Moscow was no longer the quiet college town it had been the night before. It had become the center of a national mystery, one that left investigators struggling to unravel what happened during those critical, terrifying hours while the rest of the country watched and waited. As November turned into December, the investigation into the Idaho 4 tragedy escalated into one of the most heavily analyzed cases in America. Detectives, FBI agents, and state investigators worked around the clock, piecing together hundreds of hours of footage, digital records, interviews, and forensic evidence. The Moscow Police Department, though small, coordinated with larger agencies in an effort that grew more complex by the day. Meanwhile, public speculation skyrocketed. Every detail released by police created new theories online, many of them inaccurate. Investigators had to balance transparency with the need to protect the integrity of the case. Despite the overwhelming pressure, progress was being made behind the scenes. Detectives began noticing a pattern in surveillance footage collected from roads and gas stations around Moscow. A specific white Hyundai Elantra, model years 2011 to 2013, repeatedly appeared near the King Road neighborhood in the early morning hours of November 13th. The same car was seen heading away from the vicinity shortly after the estimated time of the crime. At first, the significance of the vehicle was unclear, but investigators believed it might belong to someone familiar with the area. At the same time, advances in forensic analysis provided new direction. DNA evidence recovered at the scene was compared against national databases, but initially produced no direct match. However, investigators used genealogical tools and cross-referenced the findings with publicly available sources. This method, similar to what has been used in other high-profile cases, allowed detectives to narrow in on a potential suspect. Bryan Kohberger, a criminal justice graduate student at Washington State University, located less than 15 miles from Moscow. Investigators quietly placed Kohberger under surveillance. They examined his phone records, which revealed patterns of movement that connected him to the King Road area on multiple occasions, even before the night of the incident. Additionally, police discovered that a vehicle registered to Kohberger matched the white Hyundai Elantra seen on surveillance footage. With each finding, the case against him grew stronger. On December 30, 2022, Pennsylvania State Police arrested Kohberger at his family's home in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. He was charged with 4 counts of murder and extradited to Idaho. His arrest stunned the public, not only because of his academic background in criminology, but also because he lived so close to the victims, attended a nearby university, and appeared to lead a seemingly quiet life. Many wondered whether his studies, which focused on criminal behavior, had influenced his actions or helped him avoid capture for weeks. Once in Idaho, Kohberger's court hearings drew massive attention. Investigators revealed that key evidence included cell phone data, placing him near the victim's house multiple times before the incident, the surveillance footage linking his vehicle to the area, and DNA evidence that prosecutors allege ties him directly to the scene. Kohberger maintained his innocence, and because the case is ongoing, much of the evidence remains sealed, leaving the public with only fragments of the full picture. Despite the arrest, the Idaho 4 case continues to haunt the Moscow community. The King Road home, once a lively student residence, became a symbol of loss and fear. Candlelight vigils were held across campus and the state. Students who once walked the streets freely now moved with caution, and the University of Idaho took steps to support grieving classmates and staff. While the arrest brought relief and a sense of justice moving forward, it also left behind unanswered questions. Why did this happen? What was the motive? How did the suspect select the victims? And what details have investigators withheld to protect the upcoming trial? To this day, the Idaho 4 investigation remains one of the most impactful cases in recent American history, a story of tragedy, resilience, and the relentless pursuit of answers after a night when everything fell apart.